fleshly existence to learn something from the error of our ways. And so this is our world today, USA Today. Another one here, dozens dead in Yemen, Egypt, Syria's protests shake region. Lots of things going on there. But moving to the next one, U.S. government shutdown averted. Oh, they've averted the shutdown. U.S. government shutdown averted. Now, let's get into some of the facts about this. Washington, D.C., U.S. government shutdown averted in the 11th hour. The United States government lawmakers were able to reach a last-minute budget deal, saving the federal government from shutting down. Billions of dollars were cut through bluster, bargaining, and posturing in the media, but it doesn't completely solve the nation's debt and deficit problems. So what did they do? They slashed 38.5 billion in spending. In the next headline, here is the dividing argument, not the truth about what's really going on. Here's what's being printed in the papers as to what was the whole disagreement in terms of the budget. Abortion becomes flashpoint in shutdown battle. Thanks to the House GOP's decision to add a policy rider defunding women's health services provider Planned Parenthood to the budget and Democrats' pushback, abortion has taken center stage in this week's government shutdown battle. Now, they've given trillions to the bankers. There's a blank check still where more money is going to the military-industrial complex. Okay, and this is the headline that's being printed in the United States right now. And so people that don't know anything about what's going on with the economy, again, it's another left-right divide. Oh, the Republicans, they're not going to fund abortion. Oh, the Democrats will save us. And then, of course, you see on right-wing Republican radio, the Democrats are spending recklessly. There's no checks and balances. Exactly, but there wasn't any checks and balances when the Republicans were in office. And so it's like watching a schizophrenic person, one that's stuck in the left-right divide, whether they associate themselves with the left or the right. They look like a schizophrenic. People that look for truth from MSNBC, people that watch Ed Schultz, simply because you're saying the Republicans are doing this, the Republicans are doing that, and they're psychologically getting off on simulating revolution by watching phonies on TV talk about things that mean something to them, but in reality, it's still completely distorted. And so Mike Adams wrote this from Natural News. It's about a page long, and I'm going to go ahead and read his editorial on this whole government shutdown thing. A lot of people were asking me questions about it this week. So I'm going to go ahead and read his editorial, and he makes a lot of very important points. The difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Democrats want to spend us into oblivion while the Republicans only want to spend us into purgatory. The idea of actually running a balanced budget has never seriously occurred to either party. Government, after all, increases its popularity by confiscating money from some people and redistributing it to other people while keeping at least half of all that money for itself. Imagine, if you will, that you run a household which earns $5,000 a month in income, but you spend $15,000 a month on your credit cards, and you've been doing it for 20 years. So now you have a multi-million-dollar debt burden with compounding interest. Things are surely spinning wildly out of control. Something must be done, rightfully so. So you convene an emergency spending cut meeting with your family members. You explain that if you don't cut spending, your family will go bankrupt and you'll have to sell your home and all of your possessions. Your family members meet for days on end discussing the problem. At the end of it, what do we cut? $96 a month. Now, instead of spending $15,000 a month that you don't have, you're only spending $14,904 that you don't have. Amazing. We're cutting spending. Are you now saved from your debt? Of course not. You're still heading to the same financial collapse, but only at an insignificantly smaller rate of speed. These numbers are roughly proportional to what has just been negotiated in Washington, by the way. Can you see how utterly nonsense, useless, these so-called cuts really are in tackling the exploding national debt? The whole idiotic fiasco is shameful beyond belief. What's most shocking is that in an age when big government is spinning us all into economic ruin, even the cut big government Republicans can only walk out of the room is with a scant $38.5 billion in reductions, and they call it a victory. Well, they put more money in the war machine. Bipartisan agreement. And if you can believe this, President Obama actually called it the biggest annual spending cut in history. Seriously, do these jokers think we're all complete idiots? If we don't start cutting government spending by the trillions, the United States of America is financially doomed. To have any hope of long-term financial sustainability, we need to cut about 80% of federal spending right now and get government down to about $1 trillion a year in total spending. At that size, we could actually start paying back our national debt and get back in control of our financial destiny. But of course, that would be impossible because people expect government to deliver all these essential government services, even if it means going broke in the process and shifting all the debt to the next generation of tax-paying suckers. That's the plan of the Democrats, by the way. Spend as much as possible and pretend the laws of economics no longer apply, or just hope the next generation will somehow figure out a way to pay for it, or kill themselves, or many people that will consider killing themselves if they run out of their unemployment. I've already heard it out of people's mouths. That's how desperate some people are. There's also drugs, there's also cocaine, there's also alcohol. Portland's got a lot of that. What a beer town it is. Hence the bumper sticker, "Keep Portland Beard," and there's lots of other ways of escapism. Currently in vast abundance, by the ton, multiple tons, in this decaying country of ours. Are these services truly essential? I'm fascinated by the mainstream media coverage of this pending government shutdown. One prominent online newspaper says it would halt essential government services, such as sending out tax refund checks. Of course, they completely fail to point out that if the government wasn't confiscating a portion of your salary in the first place, you wouldn't have to wait on them to send you back the money you already earned. Actually, I found this out a couple years ago. When you go in to cash your tax return, you have to deposit the check first before getting your money to make sure that the Federal Reserve actually has that money. They actually were doing this years ago. I remember in 2004, 2005, it was a couple years after that, maybe 6 or 7. Look at the cashier going, what do you think this means for the country? You actually have to make sure the check is clear before you actually cash it. Going back to this editorial by Mike Adams of Natural News, but that's the question really. What are essential government services? Aside from defending our shores and delivering the mail, there isn't much the federal government should really do except get out of our way and stop interfering in the lives of the American people who are trying to earn an honest living. So what else does government do that actually helps anybody? Hands out health care services, people say, under Medicare and Medicaid. And yet it is precisely big government that prevents people from accessing cheaper, safer, natural health alternatives that would eliminate up to 80% of the cancers in this country in the first place. The USDA, meanwhile, actually spends taxpayer money committing the mass murder of animals under a program called Bye Bye Birdie. Under this program, taxpayer money, Bill, we have that graphic, is used to poison and kill millions of birds, geese, beavers, foxes, mountain lions, wolves, and many other animals. How's that for taxpayer dollars being put to a good use? So, Bill, let's get that graphic up because we want to show this other revelation of other places where the government spends its money actually destroying the lives of birds due to an alleged population problem. Of course, most of the money big government deals with actually ends up in the hands of the rich Wall Street banksters. Remember the first $1 trillion bailout to the rich, wealthy elite in Washington? And then remember the second $1 trillion bailout? A third, no doubt, is on the way. Bill, do we have that graphic? It's marked there on the script there with the number just to the left of the paragraph. It's just right. Why the government never needed to tax the American people in the first place? Here's the dirty little secret of government and taxation. There's no need to tax anyone at all. The federal government could simply create all the money it needs each year to run itself, depending on how you can count it. The total income tax revenues in a year are roughly $2 trillion, and the feds invented $1 trillion in a 24-hour period to bail out Wall Street. So why not just invent $2 trillion each year and eliminate the entire tax system? So why is the tax system even in place? Because the tax system, and this is where the editorial concludes itself, also one of the most important things about this report. Because the tax system is a very effective means for social control. There's absolutely no economic, fiscal, or monetary reason why the government needs to take money from the people to fund its operations. The U.S. government will never get its debt under control, and that means it can only be headed towards one thing, a total debt blowout ending in financial collapse. Because while you can mock the laws of compounding interest for a while, you cannot alter them. No government can spin its way out of debt, no matter how much political spin is applied by the White House. Bill, go ahead and get that clip ready. It's at 9:11 on the time code, and it's Lord of the Rings. We're going to go past the clip from the Knowing because we have time constrictions. In the meantime, while you get that clip ready, I'm going to read from this book called The Teachings of Buddha. And the reason I'm reading this particular section is a lot of people want to have a king, but they're not very interested in having a mindful king, a righteous king, a moral king. They're just used to having a king or someone in control over them. Now, it can be argued that we do need some form of government with a population this large. But if we're to have a government, if we're to have a king, okay, if there's going to be an empire, should it not be a mindful one where the rulers actually care about the people? There's a couple passages in here that I think I'm going to read. The duty of a ruler is to protect his people. He is the parent of his people, and he protects them by his laws. He must raise his people like parents raise their children, given a dry cloth to replace a wet one without waiting for the child to cry. In like manner, the ruler must remove suffering and bestow happiness without waiting for the people to complain. Indeed, his ruling is not perfect until his people abide in peace. They are his country's treasure. Therefore, a wise ruler is always thinking about his people and does not forget them even for a moment. He thinks of their hardships and plans for their prosperity. To rule wisely, he must be advised about everything, about water, about drought, about storm, and about rain. He must know about crops, the chances for a good harvest, people's comforts, and their sorrows. To be in a position to rightly award, punish, or praise, he must be thoroughly informed as to the guilt of bad men and the merits of good men. A wise ruler gives to his people when they are in need and collects from them when they are prosperous. He should exercise his correct judgment when collecting taxes and make the levy as light as possible, thus keeping his people happy. A wise ruler will protect his people with his power, will not abuse them with his power. One who thus rules one's people is worthy to be called a king. The king of truth is the king of kings. His ancestry is one of the purest and the highest. He not only rules the four quarters of the world, but he is also Lord of wisdom and protector of all virtuous teachings. Of course, we're talking about not a physical king, but the king of truth, the ultimate king of all. Wherever he goes, fighting ceases and ill will vanishes. He rules with equity by power of truth, and by vanishing all evil, he brings peace to all people. The king of truth never slays or steals or commits adultery. He never cheats or abuses or lies or talks idly. His mind is free from all greed, anger, and foolishness. He removes these 10 evils and in their place establishes the 10 virtues. Because his rule is based upon truth, he is invincible. Wherever truth appears, violence ceases and ill will vanishes. There's no dissension amongst his people, and therefore they dwell in quietness and safety. His mere presence brings peacefulness and happiness among them. That is why he is called the King of Truth. Since the King of Truth is the King of Kings, all other rulers praise his excellent name and rule their own kingdoms after his example. Of course, if they are mindful rulers. Now we have people that are competing for who can be the baddest, dirtiest SOB on the block, and it's a very sad state of affairs. But the police state, all of these things that we seem to not like, they're still a reflection of our own consciousness. When our consciousness collectively changes on the planet that we choose to call Earth, these things outside of us, seemingly outside of us, will dissolve. And with that, before we go to that clip, Bill, and we're at it, we're ready. Okay, there's a lot of people that are a fan of this film, Lord of the Rings, and there's a lot of symbolism in this movie about the great ultimate evil that wages war on the world of men, that wants to alter the world of men, to destroy man or make man the slave of the evil of Sauron, the all-seeing eye, symbolized in the film Lord of the Rings. There's two clips that I put together. It's actually 2002, Bill. The original Lord of the Rings was 2001. This one's 2002, and I think the third one, which I need to get a copy of if anybody has it, is 2003. In the first clip, you see something that mirrors our own world. The wicked dark wizard building his army of darkness, the orcs, genetically engineered creatures using science. Yes, the science and knowledge that he has available. He is creating a genetically engineered army of warlocks to invade the world of men. In the second clip, clip, this whole thing is going to run about 7 minutes. You see Gandalf using his power, the power of the light, to, in a way, exercise, as an exorcist, bring out the demon in the king so he can see clearly, so the king can become more mindful, so the king can have the evil spirits that are within him purged, so he can, hopefully, save his kingdom before it is too late. With that, let's go ahead and roll this clip from the Lord of the Rings, and we will be back